The CEO looked at my extended hand like it was something diseased. "I don't shake hands with low-level employees," he said. Not quietly, not apologetically, just loud enough for the entire conference room to hear. Then he smiled, the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes, and turned to the VP beside him. They both laughed. Everyone laughed. I let my hand drop, slowly. I didn't look down. I didn't blush. I nodded once, turned, and walked back to my seat at the far end of the table. The meeting continued. Someone made a joke about quarterly projections. The room relaxed. They forgot about me. That was 4 months ago. This morning, $1.2 billion vanished overnight. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you about Marcus Chen. That's the CEO. 42 years old. Stanford MBA. Made the cover of Forbes twice. The kind of man who wears Tom Ford suits and talks about disruption like it's a religion. He took over our fintech company 3 years ago after a leveraged buyout that gutted half the staff and tripled executive bonuses. I survived the cuts. I always survive. I work in infrastructure. Systems architecture, specifically. It's the kind of job nobody thinks about until something breaks. We're the people who keep the pipes clean, while everyone else takes credit for the water. Marcus Chen didn't know my name before that meeting. He still does it, actually. He called the meeting to discuss optimization. That's corporate speak for we're going to squeeze more work out of fewer people. I was only there because my director was sick and someone needed to represent the infrastructure team. I sat in the back. I took notes. I didn't speak. Then Marcus asked a question about system redundancies. Nobody answered. The VPs looked at each other. The directors checked their phones. So I cleared my throat and answered. Clearly, concisely, with actual numbers. Marcus looked surprised. "And you are?" "David Park, Systems Architecture." He nodded. "Good answer." Then he turned back to the table and continued the meeting. It should have ended there. But as everyone filed out, I approached him. Professional courtesy. He was new to the technical side. I thought I'd offer to walk him through our infrastructure documentation. Maybe schedule a briefing. I extended my hand. You know what happened next. The thing about humiliation is that it's a gift. Most people don't recognize it as such. They get angry. They get loud. They make scenes and send emails and talk to HR. They make themselves visible. I didn't do any of that. I went back to my desk. I made coffee. I continued working. But something shifted. Here's what Marcus Chen didn't know about me. I've been with this company for 11 years. I was here before the buyout, before the restructuring, before optimization. I was here when we built the systems that currently move $3.2 billion in transactions every single day. I know every line of code, every server, every redundancy and failsafe and backup protocol. I built half of them myself. Marcus Chen had been CEO for 3 years. I'd been invisible for 11. That week, I started documenting everything. Not because I was angry. Anger is wasteful. But because I was curious. I wanted to understand the shape of the thing I'd built. The vulnerabilities. The pressure points. Our infrastructure was complex. Deliberately so. Financial systems require layers of security, redundancy, and verification. But complexity creates gaps, spaces between the layers where things can happen. I started mapping those spaces. I didn't change anything. I didn't sabotage anything. I just looked, carefully, the way you'd study a lock before deciding whether to pick it. 3 weeks after the handshake incident, Marcus announced a new initiative. Project Streamline. More optimization. The infrastructure team would be cut from 12 people to 7. The rest would be outsourced to a vendor in Eastern Europe. I wasn't on the list to be let go. I was too useful, too knowledgeable. They needed me to train my replacements. The first replacement arrived in November. His name was Victor. Nice kid. Smart enough. I didn't speak much English, but the code is universal. I spent 6 weeks teaching him our systems. How the transaction pipelines worked. Where the monitoring tools lived. How to restart services if something fails. I was patient. Thorough. I showed him everything. Well, almost everything. There are parts of our infrastructure that exist in documentation only. Legacy systems from the early days. Old code that nobody's touched in years because it works and nobody wants to risk breaking it. These systems handle edge cases, unusual transaction types, reconciliation processes that only run once a quarter. They're invisible until they're not. I didn't mention these systems to Victor. They weren't in the official documentation. They weren't part of the training protocol. And technically, if someone didn't know to look for them, they'd never know they existed. By January, 4 of my colleagues were gone. Victor and 2 other contractors had taken their places. The transition was declared a success. Marcus sent out a company-wide email celebrating the cost savings. I was asked to stay on in a senior advisory role. Reduced responsibilities, same title, same salary. I accepted. Here's what nobody tells you about revenge. It's not about anger. It's about patience. It's about understanding systems. Not just technical systems, but human ones. Organizations have rhythms, patterns, pressure points. You just have to know where to press. In February, I noticed something interesting. Our quarterly reconciliation was coming up. The process that checked all transactions against external banking records. Make sure everything is balanced. It's an automated process, mostly. But it requires someone to manually verify certain edge cases. Flag discrepancies. Approve overrides. The person who used to do that was named Jennifer. She'd been with the company 9 years. She was let go in November. Victor didn't know about this process. Why would he? It only ran once a quarter, and he'd only been here 3 months. I didn't mention it to him. The reconciliation was scheduled for March 15th. I marked it on my calendar. March came. The reconciliation ran. Overnight, automated scripts pulled transaction data from dozens of sources, compared them, flagged discrepancies. Normally Jennifer would have received an alert. She'd have spent the next day reviewing the flags, approving legitimate discrepancies, escalating issues. But Jennifer was gone. The alerts went to her old email address, the one that had been deactivated in November. Nobody received them. The discrepancies sat there, unresolved. Here's the thing about financial systems. They're built on trust. When a discrepancy appears, the system assumes it will be resolved. It waits, patiently. But if nobody resolves it, the system has to make a choice. Does it reject the transactions? Does it hold the funds? Does it proceed anyway? Our system was configured to hold. On March 16th, 1.2 billion in pending transactions were automatically placed in a holding account. Frozen, waiting for manual approval that would never come. The money didn't vanish. It was simply unavailable. By March 17th, clients started calling. Where were their transfers? Why weren't their transactions cleared? By March 18th, it became a crisis. I was sitting at my desk when Marcus Chen stormed through the office. His face was red. His Tom Ford suit looked slept in. He was shouting at Victor, at the remaining infrastructure team, at anyone within earshot. Where is the money? Where the fuck is the money? Victor was panicking, pulling up dashboards, checking servers. Everything looked fine. The systems were running, no errors, no crashes. But the money was gone. But the monetary dashboard loads also looked fine. The systems were running, no errors, no crashes. Calm. What the hell is happening? I'm not sure, I said. I'd need to investigate. Then investigate, now. I nodded, sat down at the nearest terminal. I started looking. I took my time. I pulled up logs, checked transaction histories, ran diagnostics. Victor hovered behind me, breathing heavily. Marcus paced, phone pressed to his ear, barking orders at someone. After 20 minutes, I leaned back. Found it, I said. Marcus rushed over. Where? Quarterly reconciliation. There were unresolved discrepancies. The system automatically held the funds, pending manual review. So release them. I can't. It requires approval from the reconciliation coordinator. Then get them to approve it. The reconciliation coordinator was Jennifer Park. She was let go in November. The color drained from Marcus's face. Someone else must have access. No, I said quietly. That was Jennifer's unique role. When she left, the access wasn't transferred. Why the hell not? I looked at him. I don't know. I wasn't consulted during the transition. Victor was frantically typing. Can we override it? Force the release? Potentially, I said. But it would require accessing the legacy reconciliation system. It's complicated. Marcus grabbed my shoulder. Hard. How long? I'm not sure. I'd need to review the documentation, assuming it still exists. His grip tightened. You built these systems. You know them. I built some of them. 11 years ago. A lot has changed. Figure it out. Now. He released me. I walked away. I heard him on the phone again, his voice tight with panic. I turned back to the screen. Here's the truth. I could have fixed it in 10 minutes. I knew exactly where the money was. I knew exactly how to release it. But I didn't. Instead, I spent the rest of the day investigating. I pulled up old documentation, made concerned faces, typed commands that did nothing, asked Victor questions he couldn't answer. By evening, the board had been notified. Emergency meetings were being scheduled. Marcus was locked in his office, phone pressed to his head. I stayed late. Everyone did. Around midnight, I finally approached Marcus's office. Knocked softly. He looked up. His eyes were bloodshot. I think I found a way, I said. But it's going to take time. Maybe a few days. The legacy system is fragile. If we rush and break something, how much time? He asked. 3 days. Maybe 4. He stared at me. That's unacceptable. I understand. But rushing could make it permanent. He closed his eyes, nodded slowly. Do what you need to do. I nodded, turned to leave. I stopped. Thank you, he said quietly. For staying, for helping. I looked back at him, this powerful man. This CEO refused to shake my hand because I was beneath him. Of course, I said. We're all on the same team. I walked back to my desk, and I smiled. The office felt different on day 2 of the crisis. People moved quickly, spoke in hushed voices. The casual conversations by the coffee machine had disappeared. Everyone knew something catastrophic was happening, even if they didn't understand the details. I arrived at 7 a.m., same as always, made my coffee, settled at my desk. Marcus was already there. I could see him through his office window, tie loosened, talking intensely with the CFO and 2 board members I recognized from company photos. Their body language told me everything. Arms crossed, leaning away. Marcus was losing them. I opened my laptop and continued my investigation. Victor approached around 9. He looked like he hadn't slept. David, I've been going through everything. I still can't find how to access the reconciliation override. It's buried pretty deep, I said. Legacy architecture, before your time. Can you show me? In case something happens to you? We should have redundancy. I looked at him, really looked at him. He was maybe 26, earnest, trying his best. He'd taken a job offered to him. He hadn't fired anyone. He was just a kid trying to make a living in a foreign country. This wasn't about him. Sure, I said. Let me document the process. I'll send it over by the end of the day. He nodded, relieved. Thank you. After he left, I did document something. A process that would work. Eventually. But I embedded it in 40 pages of technical jargon, outdated references, and steps that required access to systems that no longer existed in their original form. It would take someone weeks to parse it. Maybe months. I had no intention of waiting months. Word had spread beyond the office. TechCrunch published a brief article. FinTech unicorn faces technical difficulties. No details, just speculation. But that was enough. Our stock price dropped 6%. Marcus called an all-hands meeting at 2 p.m. The entire company crammed into the main conference room. The same room where he'd refused my handshake. People stood against the walls. The energy was nervous. Marcus stood at the front. He'd changed his shirt, but somehow looked worse. Like he'd been shrink-wrapped in anxiety. "I want to address the rumors," he began. "Yes, we're experiencing a technical issue. It's significant, but it's being resolved. Our infrastructure team is working around the clock." His eyes found me in the crowd. "David Park, our senior systems architect, has identified the problem and is implementing a solution. We expect full resolution within 72 hours. Everyone turned to look at me. I nodded once, kept my face neutral. "This company has weathered challenges before," Marcus continued. "We'll weather this one. I need everyone to remain focused. Keep working. Keep serving our clients. We will get through this together." The meeting ended. People dispersed, whispering. I went back to my desk. An email arrived 10 minutes later. From Marcus. Subject line, "Private conversation." I walked to his office. He closed the door behind me, gestured to a chair. "Level with me," he said. "Can you really fix this?" "Yes." "In 72 hours? If everything goes smoothly." He studied my face. "You don't seem stressed." "Stress doesn't help. The problem is technical. It requires methodical work. Everyone else is panicking. Everyone else didn't build the systems." He leaned back. "I'm realizing how much I've underestimated your value to this company." I said nothing. "After this is resolved, I want to discuss your role. Properly compensate you. Maybe a director position. You deserve recognition." "That's generous," I said quietly. "It's overdue." He paused. "I also want to apologize for the meeting. 4 months ago. The handshake thing that was inappropriate. There it was. The apology I'd never expected to hear." I looked at him. This man who'd humiliated me in front of my colleagues, who'd laughed, who'd treated me like furniture. "I appreciate that," I said. And I meant it. Because his apology changed nothing. The machine was already in motion. "Get back to work," he said. "Fix this. I'm counting on you." I stood. "I will." I left his office and returned to my desk. Then I waited. Day 3 arrived. The money was still frozen. The board was demanding answers. Clients were threatening lawsuits. The TechCrunch article had been picked up by Bloomberg and the Wall Street Journal. Our stock price had dropped 18%. I continued working, slowly, methodically, making progress that only I could measure. Victor stopped by every few hours. "Any updates?" "Getting closer," I'd say. These things take time. On the afternoon of day 3, something interesting happened. Marcus received a call. I wasn't in the room, but I heard about it later from people who were. The call was from our largest investor, a venture capital firm that owned 30% of the company. They wanted Marcus removed, effective immediately. The board met in emergency session. It lasted 4 hours. People on our floor could hear shouting through the walls. At 6 p.m., an email went out to the entire company. Marcus Chen was stepping down as CEO to focus on resolving the current crisis from an advisory capacity. The COO would serve as interim CEO. I read the email twice, then I got back to work. Day 4, morning. I walked into the office at 7 a.m., made my coffee, sat down at my desk. I opened the legacy reconciliation system. I typed 4 commands. 1 to authenticate. 1 to access the holding account. 1 to approve the flagged discrepancies. 1 to release the funds. Total time elapsed, 90 seconds. By 8 a.m., the $1.2 billion had been released. Transactions were clearing. Client accounts were updating. By 9 a.m., people started noticing. "It's working. The money's back. Oh my God, David fixed it." Victor rushed over, nearly tripping over a chair. "You did it. How? What was the final step?" "Just some legacy access protocols," I said. "It took a while to find the right sequence." The interim CEO, a woman named Patricia, who I'd worked with years ago, came out of her office. "David, a word?" I followed her in. "You resolved it?" "Yes." "That's incredible. Thank you." She sat down, exhaled deeply. The board wants to meet with you. Discuss your future here. After what you've done, you've earned a significant promotion. I appreciate that. You saved the company, David. Literally saved it. I nodded. Just doing my job. She smiled. There aren't many people who could have done what you did. We're lucky to have you. I smiled back. Lucky. The next week was a blur of meetings. The board wanted to understand what had happened. How the vulnerability existed. Why it hadn't been caught. I walked them through it. Patiently. Explained the complexity of the legacy systems. The risks of rapid downsizing. The institutional knowledge that had been lost when we fired experienced staff. They listened, took notes, nodded gravely. This can never happen again, one board member said. It won't, I assured them. Not if we properly document everything and ensure adequate staffing. They asked me to prepare a proposal, a plan to rebuild the infrastructure team, hire back some of the people we'd lost, create redundancies. I spent 2 weeks on it, a comprehensive 40-page document outlining everything we needed. It included rehiring Jennifer at a senior level, bringing back 3 other team members, increasing our budget by 40%. The board approved everything. I was promoted to Director of Infrastructure. My salary doubled. I got a corner office, a seat at executive meetings. Everyone treated me differently. With respect. With gratitude. Tamarcus Chen never came back. He resigned officially 3 weeks after the crisis, took a severance package, and disappeared from the tech scene. Parentheses. I saw him one more time actually, at a coffee shop near the office, 2 months after everything had settled. He was sitting alone, staring at his laptop. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. Our eyes met. He recognized me. I could have walked away. Should have, probably. Instead, I approached his table. Marcus. He gestured to the empty chair. Sit, if you want. I sat. Congratulations on the promotion, he said. I heard you're doing well. Thank you. You saved the company. After how I treated you. Water under the bridge, I said. He laughed bitterly. You're more gracious than I deserve. We sat in silence for a moment. Can I ask you something? He said. Off the record. Sure. The reconciliation issue. The frozen funds. That only happened because Jennifer was let go, right? Because her access wasn't transferred? That's correct. But you knew about that system. You'd worked with it for years. Yes. So why didn't you flag it when she was being let go? Why didn't you mention that her role was critical? I looked at him. Really looked at him. Nobody asked me, I said simply. He stared at me. I could see his mind working, trying to process, trying to understand if there was something more to that answer. Nobody asked you, he repeated slowly. I was low level, I said. Not worth consulting on strategic decisions, remember? His face changed. Realization crept in like cold water. David. I stood. It was good seeing you, Marcus. Take care of yourself. I walked out of the coffee shop. I never saw him again. Here's what nobody knows. The reconciliation system had built-in safeguards. Multiple layers. If Jennifer's access had simply lapsed, the system would have escalated to a backup coordinator after 24 hours. But I'd modified the escalation protocols 3 weeks before the reconciliation ran. A tiny change, a single parameter that told the system to wait for manual intervention indefinitely. No backup, no escalation, just waiting. The change was buried in a routine maintenance update. One line of code among thousands. Invisible unless you knew exactly where to look. I would reverse the change 4 days later while fixing the crisis. The logs would show my modification as part of the solution, not the cause. Nobody would ever question it, because I was the hero who saved the company. I didn't sabotage anything. I didn't steal anything. I didn't break any laws. I simply allowed a system to work exactly as I designed it to work. And when the moment came, I was the only person who knew how to fix it. Some people call that revenge. I call it systems architecture. 6 months have passed since then. The company is thriving. We've hired back most of the staff we lost. Jennifer is now my deputy director. Victor got promoted too. He really is talented. I still arrive at 7 a.m. I still make my coffee the same way. Still do my job with the same quiet competence. But now when I walk through the office, people nod to me, smile, say good morning. The new CEO shakes my hand at every meeting. And sometimes late at night, when the office is empty and I'm alone with the servers and the code and the systems that nobody else truly understands, I think about that conference room, that extended hand, that laugh. I think about how Marcus Chen learned something that day in the coffee shop. Something that most powerful people never learn until it's too late. The people you don't see are often the most dangerous. Not because they're angry, but because they're patient. And they know where all the bodies are buried. I finish my coffee, close my laptop, turn off the lights. Tomorrow I'll come back. I'll do my job. I'll be helpful, professional, invisible when I need to be. Because that's what I'm good at. Building systems and knowing exactly how to break them.